Attention, everybody. The views and opinions expressed on the show are not necessarily those of Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and or their affiliate and subordinate ministries and or nonprofits.
And good morning, everybody. It is still Friday, September 11th. I'm your host. This is The Morning Mouth, and I am Johnny Rooster sitting alongside
Pastor Matt!
We are here together to shake, wake, and roll your Friday. Shake, rattle, and roll. Stop, drop, and roll.
Oh, that's sorry. I didn't mean to cut that off so quick.
Yeah, it's like music gone. It's
like
gone.
Music is there. Now you hear it. Now you don't.
It's like, can you... And you hear... If it... Don't adjust your set. It is still Morning Mouth with Johnny Rooster and Pastor Matt. We are talking about things you don't normally hear, but today's topic is a very serious one. Today is a very serious one. Serious topic, but
seriously,
it's the things you don't hear about September 11th that I'm going to be sharing today because it's my personal story of how I was involved in some indirect way. Now, I wasn't there on site at September 11th, 2001, when the terrorists attacked in New York City, and that's the biggest topic of that day. Do you remember being...
That was terrible.
Kind of remember where you were
I was
on that day.
Laying on my sister's couch. I just moved back to Springfield from Florida a couple months prior to this, and I was probably a little bit hungover that morning, but I woke up with my sister freaking out, calling my other sisters and brothers on the phone saying one of the Twin Towers just got hit by a plane.
Weird.
And that was before the second one hit. And then I looked up. I'm like, what's going on here, you know? And I looked up at the TV, and then all of a sudden you see the second plane hit. Now, I personally don't know anybody that was in the towers.
Right, right.
But I know there were people.
Well, sure. And that's
our last show was We Should Never Forget.
Right.
Or We Should Always Remember. That was the title of the morning drive this morning.
Yes, and I believe that was a very important and impacting session. I watched as much as I could on my way over here.
It was intense.
It was intense, and I want to bring a little levity to this show because always Johnny Rooster has the light side of life. But this is not a light side type of topic.
No.
However, back in 2001, I was working at a magazine, and we were writers for topics around the world.
Current events.
So this absolutely fell into our lap, and we had a huge mission to reply. Now, everybody was talking about it. Everybody was writing about it. Everybody was reporting on it. But ours was to take this specific angle of where Christians in our denomination responded and impacted. One of those...
That had to be an intense job to have.
It was different from just the secular news media, the mainstream news media, but USA Today picked up on a gentleman that I personally interviewed on the phone that was there that was part of our denomination, so therefore he fit the category that we were looking for, the demographic. His story was so impacting that he was featured on USA Today. That is the gentleman that I'm going to talk to you about today because I had the personal phone interview. I was assigned to that one. That made the top of the magazine. This was the biggest story we had. Of all the interviews we did, this one man emerged as the most amazing story from 9/11. Here's how it happened. Stanley Premnath is his name. He was a gentleman from South America and had immigrated to the U.S. many years earlier, started a family, and raised them in Queens, New York. He commuted to the South Tower every day. So that was his job. He worked on the 87th floor, I believe. It's way up high. And when he saw the first plane, he was earlier than most of his coworkers, and one of the temps that was there, a young lady named Elise, had shown up, and he was there. He saw that plane banking right towards the window, and as he saw that, he jumped under his desk. And the first plane that had hit, he thought, well, you know, the other towers hit.
So he was in the tower?
Yes, he was in the tower when the plane hit.
What floor was he on?
I think it was 87 or 88, so he's
man.
really high up there. But the first plane that had hit, he just thought, okay, he went downstairs, and they said, it's a commuter plane, we don't know anything, but there's some debris, so go on back up. So he did, but he sent the young girl out. He says, go out the side door and go home. So he definitely spared her from something horrible. He went back up the elevator with some other executives from another a Chinese-American firm, and they were talking and joking about the commuter plane, how somebody could miss that target, or how they could be so bad at flying that they would hit. And they went on up. And these gentlemen went beyond his floor to higher floors and were never seen again. Stanley, meanwhile, he saw the second plane coming, and he dove under his desk, and it was the wing of the tip of the wing was on his floor.
Oh, wow.
So it was below him where it hit, but it hit where he was on the floor, and he was surrounded by sparks and soot and everything flying about, and his shirt was ripped as he was trying to get through a wall.
And he
survived. And he survived this. So he was covered in the white soot. He had sparks and smelled airplane fuel. He was in shock. One of the people that was assigned, every floor has a designated emergency coordinator. He was calling out, seeing if anybody's there. He punched his way through sheetrock to get out, and they went down instead of up. The protocol was go up to the top, to the top of the building so they could get a flight rescue from helicopters. But something inside Stanley that day told him, no way, I'm going down, I'm getting out. So he kept encouraging people to go down instead of up. Others were going up, and they were never seen again. So on his way down, as he got more and more people, it got hotter and hotter. He felt like this is terrible. It's black. They're just all in motion. These are New Yorkers. They're used to this. This had happened in '93. So they were going down, 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 down. Now, when he got to the outside, he said there was literally just a wall of debris, glass, explosions. There's even some body parts. He was walking through a horrific scene as he escaped that building. Firefighters running up, them running down. A horrible thing. As he got away from the building, he ran to the nearest church. That was his goal. He's a very stout man of faith. He was running. He has the accent. He's of South American descent. He's running towards this Episcopal church, grabbing the iron gate. And as he did, he noticed his own shirt was in tatters. He had been punching through a wall. He was covered with white soot. He saw this pickup truck. He says, you hardly ever see a pickup truck in the city. This guy's arriving by the pickup, and Stanley grabs the pickup passenger door, yanks it open without any introduction, says, get me out of here. And the guy is so scared. He sees this image of this guy just in tatters. He jumps in, they get away, but the building's starting to come down because that one came down first before the other tower. Just a horrific, like a scene from a movie, as they would say. As they got through, he jumped out and got into the human traffic going across the Brooklyn Bridge, getting out and going to where his wife worked. He screamed for her when he came in. The security wanted to stop him. He looked horrible. Then they realized who he was, got his wife. She was so happy that he was alive. They didn't have any communication for quite a while, unsure. But the whole thing played out in such a dramatic way, he couldn't get away from that, and he was compelled to speak to audiences about this experience and how God had preserved his life for something greater, and he continues to speak to this day. But it's been 19 years, and a lot of people kind of forgot about this event. They kind of push it under the COVID rug. This year they turned everything upside down. I believe our listeners owe it to themselves to remember why we were attacked and what was going on that day and how that impacts us even today. We are still a threatened nation.
You know, let's see, how old was I? I had just turned 21 in July when that happened. The July before that happened.
Yeah.
And I remember weeks and weeks and weeks, and of course everybody had American flags on their vehicles all the time, and I was like, oh, I got to get an American flag. You know, you felt weird if you weren't showing your patriotism with an American flag.
Right. It was definitely a patriotic time. The country music, people were getting on board, a lot of live aid type things, musicians, artists, people in Hollywood. The people that normally would not be real patriotic became patriotic. We remember in the news media, I was working in the media, so we'd see these full-page ads, USA Today, other papers, other magazines. Kuwait sends their respects, everything, full-blown advertisements for prime spots in news media just to say, we are sorry for this attack. We're with you, USA. all over the world. It's very impacting. These big flags were printed out in USA Today. We were kept cutting them out, putting them on windows. People would post flags everywhere.
Yeah. I had one that I zip tied to my antenna.
Yeah.
Which a lot of cars nowadays don't have antennas like
Yeah.
that. So they got the ones now that they go into your window. They
Right.
roll up in your window. But we really, and I was, man, to be that person, did he suffer from post-traumatic stress for a
He
while after
absolutely
that?
did. Yes, he had these prayers. He had to keep praying and confessing that he was seeing the airplane
Nightmare.
coming at
Had
him.
to be a nightmare.
A
for him.
recurring dream with this horrific explosion and everything.
It'd be akin to seeing, bodies on a battlefield.
Yes. So
That's something that you can't get out of your head.
no.
My dad is a Army combat veteran
Yeah.
from Vietnam, and he says you never forget.
Right.
You never forget those, but I'm also, when I say let's not forget, I want to remember the families
Yes.
of the people who died, and I remember them. When I say remember them, I mean pray for them, because there are quite a few of them that are still going through troubles
That's right.
today.
Another part of my story personally is that even though I wasn't there, I was able to communicate to people who were in depth.
Hey, Mike.
And I had this other experience where a friend of mine that's also in the media was able to go to New York City just very soon after that event. And he had clearance because they said, put on a clerical collar, put on the standard Catholic, you might call it, that collar. And that would get you through the barrier because people weren't allowed in there. So he got through, and he had his video camera, and he noticed the rats. And that was one thing that was really disturbing, because there's human carnage under this rubble, and there are rats involved, and it's just the things that were just nauseating. But it's a horrific reminder.
This is a very graphic show today, just for those of you who don't know already. If your children are watching, be sure and let them watch with guidance.
This is a remembrance of some things that I was part of from 9/11, not directly, but as a news reporter at the time. I worked for a international magazine. The magazine went out from a church publication standpoint, but it went to 400,000 copies per week. It was a weekly magazine, not monthly, so we didn't have to wait long to put this information out there. And I was the one that interviewed Stanley Premnath, who was at the South Tower on the 87th floor, and is interviewed in USA Today and can be researched on Google now. But in 2001, Google was new. We were all just starting that thing with the internet being big, and it was now people had cell phones and communication was going on. In its early stages, we were all capturing this moment in our own way. But the one thing, when my friend went to New York City, another one went to New York City shortly after, because these are journalists that are able to get clearance. So they went in there where most people aren't. He went into the firehouse, and it's like walking into a tomb. Nobody wanted to talk. Nobody wanted an interview. Everybody had this face like they've seen the death. They've seen their brothers die, and they don't want to talk about it.
And that's understandable.
Absolutely. It was like interrupting a funeral to walk into that firehouse. He felt like an awkward stranger. He had a job to do, but he really didn't want to. There's nothing you can say. You just record it in your mind and report it what you see, because there's not going to be words. It was just too much for them to talk about.
Yeah.
But we want to pray for those that are in our emergency services. I notice that today's world, they've turned against them in a lot of our cities, and we've got to support our people in uniform.
We also don't want it to take another tragedy to bring everybody together again like that.
No, it shouldn't be like, how families that don't get together, they do for a funeral.
Yeah.
That's when they see each other. We need to see each other in a friendly way without this conflict bringing us together, or this tragedy bringing us together.
Regardless of what your political beliefs are.
Don't let a tragedy be the only instigator for you to reach out.
Love people.
Take care of people.
Not everybody's going to have the same opinions as you do. Not everybody is going to be the same religion as you. Not everybody is going to believe in the same God as you.
So, we got this.
But we got to love them regardless.
This heavier start to this program, but I want to.
That's true.
I want to say something kind of different. It's kind of halfway here. I wanted to share that today is my sister's birthday.
Whoa!
But there's a really specific, interesting thought about her birthday. From the age of 7 to the age of 35, she celebrated her birthday on June 30th, and now she celebrates her birthday today. Now, why is that? That's a riddle. It's like, this is true. For most of her growing up, she celebrated her birthday in June, but her actual birth date is in September. Why did that happen?
Probably because she didn't want to celebrate on 9/11.
Well, that is an interesting concept, but she was born in the 60s, and so she was 7 years old in the early 70s, well before 9/11 was a thing. And so here's the story behind that one. My sister was born September 11th. She celebrated her birthday from the age of 7 to the age of 35 on June 30, and now she's back to September 11. Here's why. Stay tuned. Here we go. Drum roll.
Camera's just on you now.
The reason my sister was born today and celebrated in June for many years was because she was born in South Korea, and we adopted her at age 9. At age 7, she had been separated from her family through a train incident where she was on a crowded train in the city of Seoul, Korea, and her 14-year-old brother had gotten lost from her, and she was unable to find her hometown nearby. So she didn't know where she lived. She couldn't describe that. The police found her. Tragically, she's eating out of a dumpster, and they found her in the back alley in the city, and she'd been wandering around at age 7, a big city the size of New York, for about 3 days when she was found. So they took her to the police station, interviewed her. She didn't have the information to get back home. There's no way to know. This is in the early 70s. They sent her to an orphanage. There was no other options that they could think of. There was no family they could contact.
That is tragic.
This tragic thing was turned around for her. 2 years later, our family adopted her because my parents wanted to adopt an older daughter, not a baby. Most people infant adoption. But they wanted somebody that fit into our family.
She was a toddler, right? You said.
So no, she was actually 9 years old when we received her.
Oh.
She was 7 when she got separated from her family of origin. So at age 9, a couple years later, she was adopted into our family, being presented in an orphanage as someone eligible for adoption. So my parents adopted this Korean girl, and she was 9, I was 10, and we taught her the English language. She had only spoken Korean her entire life. So she learned English through us. So we had a very special opportunity to help her learn the language, and we moved to Missouri shortly after that and started a Christian school. My parents were school teachers, and they opened up a Christian school, and we were able to help our new sister into this world of Christianity, into this world of the American system, learning English. And when she got out of college, she went out to Los Angeles and began her own business 20 years ago. And she's a very successful businesswoman, married, very sharp person. It's a wonderful story, but her birthday is today. Happy birthday, Cher. It's awesome to think about that.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
She is a remarkable person. I tease her about she's a Korean American, so she's with all the other Koreans.
So it's Cher Rooster?
Cher Rooster, yeah.
Nice.
So it's really cool to have the Rooster family. It's just a neat connection to 9/11. It was nothing to do with the tragedy because we were aware of this prior to that. And ironically, this is her birthday today. But fun things about that, you know, we just try to lighten the mood a little bit. And it's fun. But the thing that is more of an observation for me is some of the things I remember is on September 11th, I was working at the world headquarters of the Assemblies of God. So we were interrupted our Tuesday morning chapel service every week, and the president stopped it and said, you know, there's been a tragedy. Apparently America is under attack, was his words. And
well,
let's pray.
There was
'Cause
video.
This was right after the second plane had hit. And they came up to him and did the whisper in his ear, and he was standing at the podium, and he made
He
the
caught
announcement.
flack for that, but he didn't want. Do you remember that? Whenever they came in and
Thomas
told,
Trask.
and he didn't want whoever was responsible for that to see that they had, you know, an overreaction from him. I mean, he finished reading, right?
Oh, you're talking about President Bush.
Yes.
Yeah.
George W.
George W.
He kept reading, and then they had set up an emergency
Yeah, he was down in Florida.
press conference room in another room over, and then he literally went from there to address the nation.
Yes, and that was quite an interesting. He had to be taken to a place nobody knew where he was,
Right.
to protect him, and it was really an interesting day. I remember the gas prices here in Springfield
Skyrocketed to like $5 to $7
It was
a gallon.
$1.45 that day. I remember that.
And that was actually a little higher than it normally was.
The day after that, it was $3. And I remember 1 year later, because I kind of keep these logs in I got weird facts in my head. It was $1.38 1 year later. So it was a little higher than normal.
Well, they had to put a stop to the price gouging.
Yes, that went crazy.
I mean, there were people lined up outside all the way down the roads that were trying to fill up before it got too high.
Yeah.
And I was like,
it's kind of like
I'll walk before I pay $5 a gallon.
It's kind of like toilet paper during COVID. It's like, why did toilet paper become the trigger item?
I don't know.
It was not really.
That is insane to
toilet
me.
paper as gas for the 9/11. It was toilet paper for COVID.
Yeah.
So some panic buyers.
And that happens. And
But the price gouging was wrong.
Yeah, and I think some people got in trouble for that, and they set in place some regulations that prevented them from going more than like 11 cents.
Yes, you can't respond to an issue like that. So
that's capitalizing on a national tragedy.
If that hadn't happened,
we got in trouble at the call center I worked for because we sold vacation packages, and a flight ticket wasn't included in the price.
Was it from?
And people would say, and they had at first coached us to say this, and then we got in trouble for it, saying, well, the reason we don't provide the transportation there is because we know now people don't want to fly. They don't feel safe doing it. So we want to give you that opportunity to make that decision. And that's a no-no.
Yeah.
Because we were capitalizing on a national tragedy.
Right.
To try and make profit off of it.
Which tragedy was that one?
9/11.
9/11. Well, if 9/11 hadn't happened that way, do you think they would have done the same thing at COVID with the gas prices if they hadn't already been restricted?
Probably.
That probably would have been the trigger.
Yeah.
It's interesting because swine flu wasn't the trigger. COVID was the trigger.
Right. And I don't know.
For the toilet paper thing, you know, or whatever. An item off the shelf being scarce.
Man,
that's just kind of funny.
This 30 minutes goes by so fast.
Well, it's only
25 minutes.
It's a 25 minutes, really. You got to allow for all the commercials.
We'll work on getting you a full hour.
We don't play any commercials, so we got to allow for the 5 minutes of silence.
We'll have to work on getting you a full hour.
Are we doing the happy hour next? Is that
the happy hour is coming up next? I think I'm going to talk to Dr. Paul about maybe, I don't know,
roosterizing a little.
Well, just starting at 11 or at 10 instead of
starting a revolution with the rooster.
You know what I mean? Because
a little rooster awakening.
If you're available for live shows, I'd like for you to be on an hour because
it just seems like it just gets started. We can kind of banter, but not much. We got to jump in and jump out.
All right, so we got a minute left.
Final
thoughts.
We're banterers. Well,
we are banterers.
We're banty roosters.
We are. You're a banty rooster.
Panty waist.
That's banty roosters are they used to be known for their fighting, right?
Yes, we want to be known for our fighting for the truth and for the righteousness. And if you find a tragedy in your life, such as 9/11 or COVID, find the compassion. Don't gouge prices, gouge love. Start boosting your love, right? Isn't that the message?
Yep. Don't buy everything out of the store.
No, think of others. In fact, sacrifice for others. That during a tragedy, step aside and let other people be panicky if they have to, but love them. And last night I was at an event. I stood aside and let people go first. That's what you do, right?
Yeah.
You just let them get there. Let them have their moment. Guys, girls, people, love each other. Love God, love each other, love America. Love who you are.
Amen.
It's Johnny Rooster. This has been Morning Mouth. Pastor Matt.
Pastor Matt here.
And we'll see you next week when I introduce my newest novel.
And I've still got that picture, so we're going to have that up there.
Because we are going to talk about that next week.
All right, good deal. God bless you and keep you guys. We love you.
God bless America.